Greetings, fair listeners, and thank you for joining me once again as we celebrate stories and storytelling in all their forms and the bards and artists who bring them all to life. I am the Tale Collector and your host, Erica Adams. There is a natural phenomenon, the captivation of which even the most enlightened human beings share to this day with their cave-dwelling ancestors. It is as common and elusive as the wind and as frightening and mysterious as a nightmare. Yet it is also as comforting as a lullaby, as enticing as a lover's kiss, and as unique and enchanting as our dreams. The shadow. For centuries, shadows have been a source of inspiration for a variety of intellectual endeavors and cultural traditions, like photography, astronomy, mythology, even heraldry. Far from being simply a shape of blocked light on a solid surface, shadows have often been said to be living entities in their own right, as good, evil, and everything in between as our flesh and blood cells. And what better place for shadows to live, to truly live, than in the City of Light, in game form. Let us slip into the shadows of Contrast, released November 15th, 2013, and rated T for teen, for tobacco use, fantasy violence, and suggestive themes. Dee Dee loves nothing more than to watch her mother, rising jazz singer, Kat, perform at the local cabarets. Not always easy for a little girl ordered to stay safe and sound in her bedroom. Luckily, she has the assistance of Dawn, her imaginary best friend, with the appearance of a gorgeous acrobat and the ability to transform herself into a shadow. But now, the precocious 9-year-old has a new reason to brave the dark city streets and play spy in the middle of the night. Her father, Johnny, has a dangerous habit of getting in over his head in his money-making schemes, inviting trouble from the law and risking the wrath of the mafia. This has prompted Kat to kick him out of her life for the sake of her career and the safety of their daughter. But Dee Dee firmly believes in his sincere goal of redeeming himself in her mother's eyes. When his latest enterprise, a full-fledged circus with the amazing Vincenzo as the headliner, threatens to become his most devastating failure yet, Dawn must use her shadow-shifting skills to help and protect her adventurous young charge as she strives to ensure the circus's success and bring her broken family back together. I'm just going to get this out of the way right now. This is not a perfect game, and by perfect, I mean polished. Depending on which reviewer you're listening to and/or the system they're playing on, you'll get a whole laundry list of technical and design criticisms. 3 to 4 hours is too short, moving boxes is boring, the controls are too frustrating, the game lags too much, etc. I am sorry to say that these complaints aren't entirely unwarranted. As a matter of fact, I experienced a game-breaking bug myself on my very first playthrough. On the final puzzle, and of course it had to be the final puzzle, the game refused to compute my solution and trigger the next cutscene, so I was forced to restart at my last save and resolve the previous 3 or so puzzles all over again before the last one would work and I could watch my reward for playing. Yeah, it may have been only just one time, but still. Ugh. All that being said, I personally and respectfully disagree that these apparent flaws hinder if not ruin the entire experience. I actually consider these minor inconveniences in the face of everything else that Contrast has to offer. It's not often that both 2D and 3D platforming are featured in the same game, let alone in such a clever and attractive way. The latter is done by Dawn as a realistically detailed human being able to move in all directions in the real world. For the former, she is a black silhouette, able to leap onto other shadows on any flat vertical surface to get Dee Dee and herself, the player, to areas that would otherwise be unreachable. The game takes place entirely at night, illumination coming mainly from artificial sources like electric lamps and stage lights, creating shadows in abundance. Even so, Dawn will often need to create her own, such as when the environments are too dark or the shadows are too small or in the wrong place. The player can do this by using glowing orbs called luminaries to power various light-making machines, and or moving 3-dimensional objects and adjusting the scope and position of their shadows in order to form makeshift staircases and bridges. But this shadow walking isn't exclusive to inanimate objects. With the exceptions of Dawn and Dee Dee, every character in the game is depicted only in shadow themselves. While leaping from one silhouette to another, the player is treated to their owners acting out their respective soap operas, oblivious to Dawn's presence. This not only merges gameplay and cutscene together in a creatively entertaining piece of game design, it enhances the sensuality and authenticates the intrigue of the magically surreal setting of 1920s vaudeville-era Paris. The smoky, sultry phantoms brimming with that intoxicating air of dangerous romance and heart-wrenching drama, forever shadowed by their forbidden desires and haunted by memories of a long-faded past. The game's title literally refers to the principle in art which deals with the striking visual differences between two elements, particularly color and brightness. As such, this concept permeates not only the look and feel of contrast, but its very universe as a whole. Down the street, you'll see cabarets and bars with names like Pompeii, Goldmine, and Ghost Note. In Johnny's Circus, chiaroscuro, an Italian art term referring to lights and shadows, is the name of the shadow puppet theater whose playable fractured fairy tale performance almost shamelessly recreates the monochrome style and gameplay elements of Limbo, right down to its giant spider. And then there's Dawn herself, whose name epitomizes the natural shift from the dark of night to the light of day. This aesthetic ties in beautifully with the game's film noir atmosphere. Speaking of film noir, as a wonderful nod to all the cinephiles out there, the game is peppered with numerous references and homages to the golden age of Hollywood. In the cinema lobby are life-size models of movie icons like the titular silent film vampire Nosferatu from 1922 and the tap-dancing, top-hat-toting Harry Raymond from the 1930 musical Puttin' on the Ritz. But the most prominent is the immortal 1942 romantic drama Casablanca. Many of the game's chapter titles borrow heavily from the film's treasure trove of quotes and their thematic significance. Of all the gin joints, the problems of three little people, the beginning of a beautiful friendship, and We'll Always Have Paris, just to name a few. There's also one from another famous Humphrey Bogart film from 1940, The Maltese Falcon, the stuff that dreams are made of. And at the heart of all this is the story of a little girl who just wants her family to be at peace again. Besides being a stunning style choice in accordance to the time period, I think the fact that every adult is portrayed as a shadow plays another significant role. Only broad shapes, voices, and actions give players insight on the characters' looks and personalities, but collectibles hidden throughout, like posters, photographs, letters, and newspaper articles, offer valuable clues to their histories and motivations. For all their outward toughness, Dee Dee's parents lack confidence in themselves and their future, while Dee Dee has no doubt that they belong together and will do anything to make that dream come true. It could be argued, therefore, that the adults' shadow selves are their fear, ambiguity, and vagueness made manifest, while Dee Dee's substance comes from her courage and perseverance. Moreover, the fact that we see this plot unfold through youthful eyes suggests that the world we are playing through represents Dee Dee's struggle to understand the harsh reality of adulthood, and perhaps Dawn's own substance is a testament to the younger girl's need for an older figure to rely on and talk to. Dawn herself is completely silent, but her loyalty speaks volumes, like that of a protective big sister who lovingly endures every childish scolding and keeps every precious secret safe. Now, on top of its apparent technical flaws, one can certainly argue that Contrast's more mature elements of marital disputes and gangster violence aren't treated very realistically, and as such, the game's plot wraps up a bit too nicely and neatly. But then again, isn't that why we love our Hollywood classics as well as our video games in the first place? Because they and their own shadows and illusions help us escape reality for a time? Contrast may be more style than substance in more ways than one, but its highly unique gameplay mechanics, whimsical yet luscious visuals, and engaging heartfelt story give that very style a substance all its own. Gather round next time for another tale you may have forgotten or have never heard before. Until then, listeners, may inspiration always find you.